knew that those lions had teeth. They were hungry. They didn't put people in the lion's den when they'd already been fed. They put them in there with hungry lions. And when the devil gets after us, let me tell you, he's hungry on your trail. Because he intends to cancel every blessing that you would have. It pleased Darius. Now, Daniel has had a wonderful experience. He's actually interpreted all kinds of dreams for the king. King Nebuchadnezzar, then was Belshazzar came behind him. Then, now we're down to Darius, King Darius. King Darius seems to be halfway decent. It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps. And those are just government officials. They govern under a king. But it pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them. One of them was Daniel. Now, one was Daniel. 3 administrators over the kingdom of Babylon. And I'm going to read further. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer loss. Now, Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. And guess what's going to happen? Jealousy came. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. How many of you can, us, right today, if somebody were to try to find something on us, how many of us they wouldn't have a hard time finding something? But they couldn't find anything on Daniel's administrative abilities. So what did they try to do? They could not find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, we will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has to do with the law of God, of his God. Now, how many of us are living to the point for God that somebody would recognize that, to know that's the only fault that they could find in him? Now, I'm going to read on. Finally, let's see. So the administrators and the satraps went as a group to the king and said, O King Darius, live forever. The royal administrators, the prefects and satraps and advisors and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or man during the next 30 days. Now, how many of us would have trouble not praying for the next 30 days? Okay, they knew that Daniel would because he prayed 3 times a day. Except to you, O king, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, O king, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered, in accordance with the laws of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. So King Darius put the decree in writing. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. Remember we talked about why he prayed toward Jerusalem? Okay, moving right along. See, when I look up and look down, 3 times a day he got on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to God just as he had done before. Then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying. Oh my gosh. They found him praying. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or man, except to you, O king, would be thrown in the lion's den? The king answered, the decree stands in accordance with the laws of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. Then they said to the king, Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or to the no attention to you, O king, or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day. When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. See, the favor of the Lord, even through the king to this extent was on Daniel. He was greatly distressed over this. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until sundown to save him. Then the men went as a group to the king and said to him, "Remember, O king, that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no decree or edict that the king issued can be charged." So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve, continually rescue you." A stone was put against a stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace. And instead of the king going in and going to sleep, you see what the favor of the Lord will do? Even to your boss, when you are in Jesus and you walking with Jesus, God will give you favor with those set over you. Daniel had favor not just with the guard or somebody set over him, but he had favor with the king. God will elevate you to the point that what will happen, you'll have the attention of those that are set of the big boss. I'll just put it that way. You'll have the attention of the big boss. But look at this. This one was great. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating. Now, look at this. How many people that you know, or how many bosses do you have or know about that would spend the night fasting for you? If you look in the word, you can see that King Darius fasted. He didn't eat. He lost his appetite. He fasted because he loved Daniel. Now, Daniel's in captivity, and he got a reputation of being obedience and walking obedience. And without any, let's see what it said. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, look at this. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve, continually been able to rescue you from the lions?" Listen, this is awesome. This is truly awesome. Here, this is a king who's fasted for a slave, you might say, all night long. And he was so worried about Daniel until he got up early the next morning. He didn't wait until that evening. He got up early the next morning, and he ran to the cave. He went to the cave speedily, and he called out for Daniel. That's the favor of the Lord. That's the favor of the Lord. And guess what? Daniel in his captivity. Daniel is actually being a witness in his captivity. He's witnessing to this king. The king has heard about all the things, the interpretation of dreams, and all kinds of things that he had done. Is your reputation preceding you? Is it a good reputation? Daniel had a good reputation. Then he said, Daniel answered, "Some of us don't know how to be respectful to people set over us." Look at what Daniel did. Thrown in the lion's den to be eaten up by the lions. And this is the way Daniel answers the king. He said, "Daniel and old king live forever." Is somebody thrown some of us, and including me, at a time in my life, in a lion's den where there were wild, hungry lions waiting to chew me up? I would have probably been coming out of there saying, but Daniel was rescued. And that's what happened to Daniel in that lion den. Those lions wasn't full. They were hungry, as I said before. And what happened with that is that the lion, here's what his answer, he said, "My God sent his angels, and he shut the mouths." Woo, shut the mouths of the lion. How many of us know that if we are being spoken against, or somebody's doing things to us, and it's not true, we have to make sure it's not true now, if they're doing things against us,